Wow. Hey, much love and respect. Appreciate you tuning in, taking the time to watch the videos. So today we're gonna continue reading this book. The book again is Dios Gold, The Archives of Atlantis by Stan Hall. And we're gonna continue on chapter 2 of this book. Chapter 2 is called The Egyptian Tablets of the Mormon Church. If you guys don't know the origin of the Mormon religion, Joseph Smith was given some golden tablets with writings, right? A metal library by the angel Moroni. So I guess because they found, metal library in Ecuador, I guess they're gonna make a correlation with the metal tablets that Joseph Smith was given or found in New York. It says here we introduce the interest of senior representatives of the Church of the Latter-day Saints from 1968 onwards in the breaking story of the library, since a similarly invisible metal library forms the basis of the Book of Mormon. From my researches, I will try to establish an historical probability for the existence of the 4 different sets of brass plates of Angel Moroni, loaned to founder Joseph Smith on 22nd September 1827. With due apology to the Church for proceeding with the name Mormon instead of Latter-day Saints, I hope Church historians might find the following of interest. Note, I never did meet with anthropologist and historian Professor Paul Chessman of Brigham Young University, who was interested in discussing my work. There appeared to be historical connections suggesting that the original chroniclers of the brass plates were descendants of Magyar-speaking Egyptian Amalekites. All right, hear that? Talking about the golden tablets they found in New York, they wrote their Mormon Bible from. The following might support the Book of Mormon account of the brass plates first acquired by the priest Laban. The church claims that the brass plates contain the secular and sacred records of the Judahites, all right, tribe of Judah. About 600 BC, the plates were violently taken from Laban, a priest of the line of Joseph, an authorized custodian by 4 sons of Lehi, today revered as Mormon prophet, who removed them to the shores of the Red Sea. All right, the Red Sea. Where is the true Red Sea? All right, so real quick, when it comes to the Red Sea and its true location, we're going to go back to a video I have here. It's called Quetzalcoatl, the Feathered Serpent, Priest King, Caciquels, Pardon the Seas, Joshua, Red Sea location. We're going to go to minute 44 and 3 seconds out of an hour. So make sure you get all the video if you haven't seen it. Talking about a parting of the seas. We're talking about these caciques who went to Mexico, right? We're talking about the Bible tells us it's on the Red Sea. And, respect to UB News for bringing this perspective. And as you see here on this map, which is the codfish map of North America from Herman Moll, 1720. All right, you can see that it says in between the Baja California and Mexico is the Gulf of California. And we see it says Gulf of California or Red Sea. All right, Red Sea, the Red Sea, the Gulf of California or the Red Sea. All right, let's back up so you can see where we are. All right, US, Louisiana or Florida, New France up here, the whole, look at this, the whole East Coast. All right, but you see the Gulf of California or the Red Sea shows California as an island. All right, we know where was Utah around over here. We're talking about Aslan and migrations. We know that the also the Colorado River, right? The Colorado River empties into the Gulf of California. You can see on old maps as well. All right, Rio Colorado just means red. So did the sea really extend all the way up here before, right? We know that the Salt Lake is a salt, that was an ancient ocean up there, right? All right, so Colorado, Gulf of California or Red Sea, all right, it's all kind of the same. All right, so I found this article. It's called Names for the Gulf of California, a historical review by R.C. Brusca with great assistance from Ezekiel Escura and Jorge Soberon. compiled in 2005, updated in 2018. Summary: the Gulf of California has been called many things, but collectively, with spelling variations aside, these boil down to 4 names. See chronology below. So it says here, number 1, Mar Bermejo, or Vermilion Sea, Vermilion Sea. You're going to see that in a lot of maps on the Gulf of California. The original name given by Francisco Ulloa in 1539. So even though we just saw that map from 1700s, this was a reference they were given to the Gulf of California since at least 1539. The first person in historic times to sail to the head of the Gulf. The name also appears as Vermiglion, Vermijo, and Rojo. So Vermelho, right? Or Vermelho, right? Etymology from Old Portuguese, vermelho, red. Again, vermelho means red sea, so the vermelho sea means red sea. Again, as an adjective, vermelho, right? It says red, having red at its color, red, socialist or communist. So vermelho, noun. As a noun, red, color. As an adjective, red. All right, as a noun and as an adjective, it means red. And it says here again, mare vermelho, mare vermelho, red sea. And then we got mare rubrum. All right, we're going to get into that. All right, so mare rubrum, remember mare rubrum? So it says here on the Red Sea in Wikipedia, on the Red Sea. All right, let's go to names. It says Red Sea is a direct translation of the Greek Erythra Thalassa. In Latin, what is it called? Mare rubrum. Mare rubrum. All right, Red Sea is mare rubrum in Latin. You're going to see that in a lot of the maps. Again, we got mare vermelho and mare rubrum. 2 different languages just to make it clear for you, Red Sea. So real quick, just going to show some other maps I have here. A little collection. We're going to get mappy. Shout out to Con Drop for his map sessions. So here I'm just going to zoom in. As you can see, America on the top. All right, Nueva España. When you go down into the Gulf of California, or up, I mean, you see Mare Vermelho. We already know that means Red Sea. All right, so you guys can see. And of course, Cibola, the cities of gold, Quivira, the Straits of Anion. We're just talking about West India. This is Boasio, Sir Francis Drake map. And South America, you see it says West India, West India. Or as you can see in this map, this is Gastaldi's map of the world, 1550. Zoom into America, right? I'm going to show you. Now look how it says Quito right over here in the Amazon. Quito, but Quito's in Ecuador, right? But look how it's all the way over here on this side. Remember the Quitus Empire all throughout the Amazon, And the other thing I wanted to show you is how you see Baja California is connected to Asia. You see there's more land connected to Asia. It's not a barren strait. This is Greater Asia, or what they're calling India Superior. We're talking about the farthest east. This is the farthest east. Look at the camels right here in North America. I'm not kidding. Look at this. What is this? Looks like a camel almost. And again, you see, when they tell you horses and all these things originated here and went to Asia, yeah, they just walked over there. Look how far the Colorado extends. This map is the Jodocos Hodios Christian Night Map of 1597. I want to show you, South America literally touching Antarctica or the ice wall. And when we go to the, again, Gulf of California, I'm going to zoom in, even though it gets blurry, it says Mar Vermelho or Red Sea. They're also calling it the Red Sea. This is another map. And when we zoom into this map as well, we get Mar Vermelho or Red Sea. We're just talking about Atlantis, so-called Atlantis, right? It says Atlantis Insula or Atlantis Island, and literally right over America. Atlan, right here. And then you got Atlantis Insula, right? Island. Look at this, in South America. The Amazons again. California is an island. This is a sea. Says the annex cut is an extract from Samson's map of America, showing views respecting the New World as constituting the island of Atlantis. All right, the New World as what? The island of Atlantis. It is called Atlantis Insula, Nicolau Samson, Antiquati Restituta. All right, and it keeps going. Got another map here, and again we go to the Gulf of California. Says the Red Sea or Mar Vermelho, Red Sea. And again, we're just talking about the land of Prester John, right? Prester John, or India Superior, Cathay. Yeah, that's over here, the true old world. This is the MS map from the British Museum. Look it up. It's real. India Superior, Prester John, Priest King. So we're gonna go back to the book. Just wanted to go ahead and break out of that real quick and just, go over a whole Red Sea thing again so you're not confused. When we're talking about ancient Egyptians, didn't the Israelites supposedly flee the Egyptians and ended up in the Red Sea? So again, now you know, Red Sea is over here. Sinaloa or Chinaloa, Sinaloa, Chinaloa, Greater China. Right back in the book, Tayo's Gold, the Archives of Atlantis. But we left off talking about, so as you guys remember, they were talking about Lehi, who had the sacred records of the tribe of Judah. I'm going to read from here again. It says, there appear to be historical connections suggesting that the original chroniclers of the brass plates were descendants of Magyar-speaking Egyptian Amalekites. The following might support the Book of Mormon account of the brass plates first acquired by the priest Laban. The church claims that the brass plates contain the secular and sacred records of the Judahites, right, the tribe of Judah. About 600 BC, the plates were violently taken from Laban, a priest of the line of Joseph, and authorized custodian by 4 sons of Lehi, today revered as a Mormon prophet, who removed them to the shores of the Red Sea. All right, now you guys know where the true Red Sea is. And this is a facsimile, it says here, made from the plates of the Book of Mormon by Joseph Smith. That's the writing right there, as you guys can see. Again, very similar to the Micmac. Actually, it is an ancient Egyptian script. And we're going to see that this Lehi, I have a theory based on the story I'm reading here, who he might be in the Old Testament. It says Lehi confirmed from the place that he and Laban were of the priest line of Joseph and Abraham. Also that the plates contain 3 important items: the Pentateuch, or 5 books of Moses, a history of the Jews down to the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, all right, the reign of Zedekiah, and the promise of a Messiah. Remember, recently we learned about Zedekiah and Jeremiah, right? Before his death, Lehi passed custodianship of the plates to his youngest son, with the Egyptians sound the name of Nephi. Nephi abridged his father's additions to the plates, adding their family history, before similarly passing custodianship on to his own son, Lehi. Lehi had been a rich and rebellious prophet, scribe, and patriarch who appears 598 BC, first year of the reign of Zedekiah, right, during the time of Zedekiah, following the first destruction of Jerusalem by King Nebuchadnezzar and the exile of Zedekiah's nephew, King Joachim, to Babylon. Man, why does this sound like the story of Zedekiah and Jeremiah fleeing, right, with some of the daughters, princess? Remember where they ended up? So could Lehi be Jeremiah? Lehi's prophecies of doom for Jerusalem brought about his rejection by the Jewish establishment. Now with this line right here, especially because I know that Jeremiah was prophesying against, King Zedekiah for not following the true law, and he was jailed by King Zedekiah. He was imprisoned, Jeremiah. So it sounds just like the same story. I'm just saying. Now, I'm not saying I'm right, but very interesting. Perhaps it was because of this he escaped the fate of Ezekiel, and other priests marched into exile when Nebuchadnezzar carried out thence all the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house. Alright, just like Jeremiah and the princes were spared. It's almost the same story here. Treasures, thanks to Laban, perhaps not all the treasures were taken. Thanks to Laban, perhaps not all the treasures were taken. Those removed by Nebuchadnezzar. It mainly passed to Ezekiel, and fellow priests in charge of Jewish artifacts and records in Babylon. These records, a generation earlier, had formed the basis of the Deuteronomic monotheism forced on the Judahites of Jerusalem in 621 BC. They were further reformed during the Babylonian captivity of 70 years. In 458 BC, they were brought back from Babylon by Ezra, followed 12 years later by Nehemiah, and enforced on weeping and wailing nation, curiously with the help of accompanying Persian guard of 1,500 men. Judahite priests of the Babylonian captivity, as well as local Babylonian, Chaldean, Ireland, remember where Jeremiah went, Chaldean and Persian priesthoods, must have encountered descendants of the 10 tribes of Israel taken into exile during the earlier Assyrian invasion of 721 BC, in a manner similar to the Mita-Maya system of the Incas of South America. Zarathustra, born 627 BC, founder of a new Persian religion, was a contemporary of Ezekiel, the Zarathustrian god of light. Ahura Mazda and the god of darkness and evil, Ahriman, are identical with the Babylonian Marduk, Jupiter, and serpent Tiamat, whose Jupiter, the Hebrew Yahweh Sedek, Tashtahajah, and Levitian serpent, the Egyptian Ptah, Isis, Atum-Re, Ammon, and serpent Apophis, Seth, and the Greek Zeus and serpent Typhoon. Here was fertile mytho-historical ground for cooperative religious and social programs, the names and forms being tailored to their respective national interests. An inscription on jar seals found at Debir and Beth Shemesh in Judah reads, Tashtahajah, the property of Eliakim, steward of Jehoiakim, suggesting that between 598 BC and 587 BC, destruction of Jerusalem, this Eliakim was left in charge of the property of King Joachim during his captivity in Babylon. There is a similarity between the names Lehi and the priestly dynastic line of Levi, the latter being responsible for national treasures such as the Ark, the plates of the commandments, the covenant, and the tables of the testament. Surely this experienced Levite priesthood, serving the older order of Melchizedek, would have produced a copy of their invaluable records. Also, Nebuchadnezzar could hardly have dropped in on the Judahites without warning. Both parties were aware that a nation's sacred treasures and archives are prime targets in seeking to subjugate a conquered people. Did priest custodian Laban hide the original plates and documents in a secret refuge known only to the order of which the Josephs, Laban, and Lehi belonged?
So, this book I wrote, it was a couple years ago that I wrote it. I kind of ran into the topic. I was doing the book on Ziph, which we were trying to figure out with some linguists what metal that would have been, and we also looked at the metallurgy of the plates based on the thickness and Emma's description of them being able to thumb through them like parchment. This is the characters document. This came out of the David Whitmer family. It's owned by the Community Church of Christ, the RLDS, former RLDS church, and has actually been looked at recently by some church historian, people and experts in church history, and it looks to be, they did a handwriting analysis, it looks to be John Whitmer's handwriting, who was an early scribe in the church. This is a newspaper broadside from the Prophet, which was an LDS paper. As you can see, the characters here, they show them in the line, and those actually match pretty close to the characters document, except these right here, which I actually looked at it. I said, well, why are those different? But I found that if you flipped and reversed them, they were identical. The characters document has probably been looked at by a lot of people, but there's not a lot published about it in the terms of attempting to decipher it. Ariel Crowley did a series of articles in the improvement area back in 1942 and wrote a book in 1961. And he actually, and the reason I'm showing this is I decided I would use his designation of the characters, because that's the other thing you have to do. You actually say, okay, this is a character, here's a number, identify it. And interestingly enough, he was not really looking for a translation, because in that period of time, it's kind of Sidney Sperry theory that it was really you couldn't really translate it because what you're looking at is essentially Hebrew writing that is using Egyptian phonetically, so you would really have no hope of deciphering it. But he was actually just trying to say, hey, I'm looking at these characters and I'm finding them in Egyptian or some form of Egyptian. And so he actually wrote a book where he identified some of these characters. Some he actually had meaning to them and actually was useful to me as I started looking at it. Fourth, the Book of Mormon text indicates the characters are Reformed Egyptian, right? So it's logical to look for an Egyptian source with the likelihood that maybe there's some Mesoamerican and perhaps Hebrew influence. We have to remember that Reformed Egyptian is not capital R Reformed Egyptian. It's just a term that was used by Mormon to describe the language. So people say, oh, well, you can't find that Reformed Egyptian here. Well, it's not a formal language. It's just he's saying it has some elements in it that may be Egyptian. So the straightforward Mesoamerican numbers, the number 1 was a dot. That's not all that unique in terms of Mesoamerica. Dots can be used by various ancient systems for numbers. You have the number 9, which I pointed out. There's a number 2 that shows up. And what you have here is the C designations are, that's the number that was assigned from the characters document by Crowley. Then this would be basically, I just directly cut and paste it right out of the dictionary. So I'm not interpolating anything, you can just see it. Then you have the number 3, number 4, number 5, the number 10, fairly, number 12, number 50, 1,000, 20,000. Then I get to the variant Egyptian numbers, which one thing I was seeing was the numbers that I was identifying, there were these dots, okay, which were clearly had something to do with the number. Various numbers that have these dots in it, and then one that doesn't. In the Egyptian, you have an 80, which has some similarity to it. And essentially, what I figured out is what you have is a number 40, which the tally marks are giving you marks of 10. And then the dots, again, consistent, are 10s. Some of these you say, well, how did you figure this out? One thing I knew is you have numeric systems. The Mesoamerican system is a base 20 system, not a base 10. Then also you had a million, or also interpreted as multitude, and 1/7 or week. The book I wrote 2 years ago, I was doing a totally different avenue of research on Sumerian roots of some of the Jaredite names, and was looking at the Proto-Cuneiform, which is the pre-Cuneiform, pre-2500 BC Sumerian, which they really haven't translated at all, except for the number systems, some of them. And it was interesting because there was a few of the numbers I knew what the value was, or that it was a number, and assigned a value to it, that actually I found in the Sumerian Proto-Cuneiform. The other thing that's interesting is you have, in the Proto-Cuneiform, you have dots that equal 10s and 1s, and curiously enough, some of the characters have similarities to the Proto-Cuneiform form. And as you notice, this is the date system. It's called the U system. One of the month glyphs actually looks pretty much like that. And then, kind of interestingly enough, you also have the dots going inside of a character, adding value to it. So the number 20, as we get to, you'll see it has 2 dots in it, and also similar to shell glyphs in Mesoamerica. Also in the Proto-Cuneiform, you have bar and dot and tally number systems. You have that in Mesoamerica. I'm not saying that they, for sure, you can prove they came from there, but it's consistent with that. Now, the number 400 was interesting because when I initially looked at it, I had the dot above, but I also said, it also looks like some Aztec glyphs. And also it looks almost like pretty close to the Mesoamerican year sign. And I thought, well, this is interesting because I had assigned it a number of 400. And then in doing the research, this is all not in the book, this is since then, is according to Edmondson, who was kind of the calendrical authority of most of the Mesoamerican calendars and published a large book on it, they indicated that the year almost certainly originated as a period of 400 days anciently, even though it's not really reflected. So I was saying, here, you got the Mexican year sign equaling 400. You have the Aztec glyph, which is a bundle of grass, equaling 400. And then in Hawaii, the language of the Aztecs, Shahuitl, the word means either solar year or grass. And then you also have the Aztec year sign associated with grass bundles, and classic Maya, some tufts of grass. Anyway, and then Brian Stubbs, whose research I had published, also showed that Shahuitl also looks to have a Semitic derivation of grass, etc. So it looks like I actually can say that character looks like you're finding it in Mesoamerica, and the number 400 is consistent with that. Now the number sequence, here's a number sequence that you had the 9 here, 20, 400. So you're looking at the base 20, and it actually goes down 400, and then you have a 5 and a 10 and a dot. And the interesting thing about the 5 and the 10 is in the Maya, in the spoken Maya, sometimes they have a leading 10 or 15. It's kind of an anomaly. Because I thought this isn't making sense. I should have maybe a larger number going to smaller, but that actually is consistent with maybe a Mesoamerican practice. And this particular glyph set is followed by Egyptian glyph set that clearly looks to be ascending to the eternal land. Okay, so I'm saying, okay, I look like I've got a death date of something. And then if you calculate that out, it's 479, which is actually matches the death date of King Benjamin. Anyway, so this is only the first part of the translation. It was an iterative process where I kind of went through looking at the numbers, looking at what I could find in the hieratic Egyptian. And then you have different things within the characters document. This is just showing you the numbers that are located. This is the interesting one. So you have that leading 15 and the number 9, and that also matches plates. So you have 15 plus 9 is what? 24. So those are interesting things. And there are also calendrical markers surrounding them, surrounding the number sequences that were interesting. And those look to be, and again, there's obviously going to be some debate on this, but it looks like the structure of the way that the dates were being put together was similar to the Mayan method of having a distance number, and then you have ADIs, anterior date indicators, and posterior date indicators. You set a date and you count backwards and forwards off of that date to get a particular date. Now, I'm not saying it was used exactly that way. And those ADI and PDI, some of the glyphs have been interpreted as they came to pass glyphs, and I saw some similarities between the glyphs. It's arguable, but I think what you're looking at is a Mesoamerican structure in the document. Like I said, I've got a couple other books. Ziph, you might find that interesting. And this is a book that I'm coming out with in a couple months. It's Sumerian Roots of Jaredite Names in the Book of Mormon. What it's looking to is actually finding etymological sources of the names. So this book should be interesting, hopefully in a dry sort of way, but it's like 700 pages, so I tried to get people to review it, and they're like, you can pay me $2,000 to read 700 pages of Sumerian etymology. So that's one reason. I do try to get peer review, et cetera, as an independent researcher, but some of it I just kind of put it out there, and the peer review comes by, especially with the internet, everybody responds, people can engage. And anyway, so hopefully, one thing I would say is one source I did not use for the translation was the Michigan Relics, if that makes you feel